Man, oh man, has 2025 been rough for anyone trying to fly anywhere?
Oh, tell me about it.
It seems like every time I turn on the news, it's just delay after delay after delay,
Yeah.
even worse sometimes.
Right.
And everyone seems to have an opinion on how to fix this whole mess.
Of course.
And one of the loudest voices out there is,
Elon Musk.
Elon Musk. That's right.
Right.
He's out there saying, what we really need to fix this is to just throw Starlink at the problem. Use that as our new air traffic control system.
Yeah. Seems a little ambitious to me, but
Oh, definitely ambitious.
yeah.
But, it's Elon. So
You never know.
you never know. He might be right. So that's what our deep dive is about today.
Okay.
We've got Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy's response to this whole idea of using Starlink.
Sounds good.
And we're going to just go through it and break it down and see what he's saying.
All right, let's hear it.
Yeah, so Sandra Smith over Fox News,
Oh, yeah.
she just comes right out and asks Duffy, is Starlink the answer? And Duffy's response is just a flat out, it's not.
Wow.
It is like peak government bureaucratic talk right there.
Just cut and dry. It's not.
It's not. Yeah. And you can just hear in Smith's voice
Yeah.
how surprised she is. She's just like, oh, okay.
So, I mean, it does sound kind of nice on the surface, right?
Yeah.
Like Starlink is out there. It's this huge network.
Yeah.
And it's already proven to be pretty fast and pretty reliable in a lot of places.
Yeah. I mean, I use it out in the woods sometimes when I'm camping, and it's way
Yeah.
better than my phone.
Way better than nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. But, our expert here can maybe explain to us why Duffy is so hesitant to just jump all over this.
Yeah, I mean, I think Duffy's got a point. You have to think about what air traffic control really is. It's basically like the nervous system of our entire airspace.
Oh, wow.
It has to be super precise, incredibly resilient to any failures, and, obviously really secure.
Yeah, of course.
And if we just rip out what we have now and replace it with a system that's completely dependent on satellites, even a system as good as Starlink, it just introduces so many potential problems.
Yeah, like what kind of problems are we talking about here?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is latency.
Okay.
Yeah. So even though Starlink is super fast, those signals still have to travel all the way to space and then back down to Earth.
Right.
And that takes time, even if it's just milliseconds,
And milliseconds matter when you're talking about airplanes.
Exactly. When you're dealing with planes in the air, milliseconds can make all the difference.
Wow.
And then there's security. Cyber attacks are happening all the time these days.
Oh, yeah, constantly.
And if we switch to a space-based system like Starlink, it might create a whole new set of vulnerabilities that hackers could exploit.
Right.
And you also can't forget about the stuff that's already on the ground.
Right.
Airports have all these complex systems that are tied into air traffic control.
Yeah.
And trying to completely overhaul all of that would be, it'd be a total nightmare, logistically speaking.
Yeah, you'd have to retrain everyone, get all new equipment. Yeah, it would be
A huge mess.
a huge undertaking.
For sure.
But Duffy does say that Starlink could be a part of the solution.
Okay, interesting.
And he specifically mentions that it could be helpful in more remote areas like Alaska, where running fiber optic cables is really difficult.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, he even calls out certain facilities that Starlink could really help.
So I guess in those remote areas where it's just so hard to get that ground-based infrastructure in place,
Yeah.
Starlink could be a total game changer.
Yeah.
It could be like a super reliable backup for the existing systems.
Yeah,
Or even a way to connect really remote outposts that are completely cut off right now.
that's cool.
Yeah. But even then, we still have to think about the limitations of satellite internet.
Right?
It's always going to be vulnerable to weather.
Oh, yeah.
So a big snowstorm or even just thick cloud cover could mess with the signal.
Right.
And that's just not a risk you have with fiber optic cables that are buried underground.
That makes sense. So it sounds like Duffy is really pushing for this kind of best of both worlds approach.
Okay.
Use the best of what we have now and then supplement it with Starlink where it makes sense.
Yeah.
He even mentions that they've got engineers from both SpaceX and other companies working on these upgrades.
Mm.
And he also says we have to move at the speed of business, not the speed of government.
That's a pretty bold statement.
Yeah.
It sounds like he knows that the government can't do this alone.
Yeah.
We're seeing more and more of these public-private partnerships for these huge infrastructure projects
Yeah.
where the government puts up the money and does the oversight,
Right.
but the private sector brings the expertise and the innovation,
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if the government tried to tackle this all on their own?
Oh, God, it would be
It would be a disaster.
endless committees and studies, and
Yeah.
it would take decades.
I don't even want to think about it.
No, it's best not to.
So even with all this private sector help, Duffy admits that we're not quite there yet.
Okay.
He says the U.S. air traffic control system, it's not the best in the world right now, but he is confident that we can get there.
Okay.
But it's going to take more than just Starlink,
Right.
He says we need a combo of private sector innovation and, of course,
The money.
congressional funding.
Oh, yeah. Can't forget about that part.
Never forget about the money.
That's where things can get really tricky. I mean, you have to get the budget approved, figure out how to spend the money and make sure it doesn't get wasted.
Yeah.
And then you've got all the politics involved,
Oh, yeah, of course.
Everyone wants a piece of the pie.
So it sounds like we've learned a lot today.
Yeah,
The
definitely.
Starlink, it's super cool.
It is.
But it's not a magic bullet.
No,
Upgrading the air traffic control system is going to be a huge project.
absolutely.
It's going to take a bunch of different technologies and collaboration between the government and the private sector. And it's going to take a ton of money.
A ton.
But you know what? I think the big takeaway, for me at least,
Dude.
is just how quickly technology is changing.
Oh, yeah.
We're talking about things now that would have sounded like science fiction a few years ago.
Totally.
So who knows what the future holds?
Exactly. I mean, in a few years, we might have AI managing air traffic or even autonomous planes flying around.
That's wild.
It is wild, but it's not impossible anymore. And that's something to really think about,
Yeah. Where is all this going?
Yeah. What's next?
Thanks for listening, everybody.
See ya.